It's a universal truth. There's nothing quite infuriating like the feeling of returning home after a long day, groceries precariously balanced in your arms, only to find your designated parking spot occupied. Especially when it's occupied by Karen's car. I circled the block once, twice, 3 times, my internal monologue growing increasingly colorful with each pass. There it was. Her gleaming, oversized SUV, parked squarely in my spot space number 17, clearly marked. Conveniently located near the entrance to my building, and most importantly, mine. Sunset condominiums may have promised sunset views and resort-style living, but the reality for me was a constant battle for parking. I, James Peterson, am not an unreasonable man. I appreciate convenience. I value order. And I really value my parking spot. I'm not a car fanatic, but after a long day, the last thing you want is a parking space scavenger hunt. I pride myself on my ability to remain calm in most situations, but there are 2 things that test my patience: slow walkers in the grocery store, and people who steal parking spots. And Karen? Well, she was a professional parking spot pilferer. This wasn't the first time. Oh no. This was, by my count, the 7th time in the past 3 months that Karen had decided my parking spot was more convenient for her. The first time I'd chalked it up to a mistake. The second time I'd left a polite note. Hi there. Just a friendly reminder that space #17 is assigned to Unit 2B, thanks. The third time, I'd actually caught her in the act. Oh, hi, she'd said, her voice dripping with faux sweetness. She was always impeccably dressed, hair perfectly coiffed, makeup flawless, as if she'd just stepped out of a magazine. She drove a car that probably cost more than my condo, and she parked it with the same entitled disregard she seemed to apply to everything else in life. I'm just running in for a minute. I'll be right out. But this is my spot, I'd said, trying to keep my voice level. Oh, I know, dear, she'd replied, with a dismissive wave of her hand. But mine is all the way over there. She'd gestured vaguely towards the far end of the parking lot. And I have these heavy bags. It's just so much easier this way. Easier for you, I'd muttered under my breath, but she'd already flounced off, leaving me to fume and find another spot. That was Karen in a nutshell, entitled, inconsiderate, and completely convinced that the rules didn't apply to her. She was the type of person who'd order a salad and then eat half your fries, all while complaining about her diet. She was, in short, a nightmare neighbor. And each time she stole my spot, she had a different, equally flimsy excuse. I had a doctor's appointment and I was running late. My dog was sick, and I needed to get him inside quickly. The sun was in my eyes, and I couldn't see the numbers. It was always something. My initial attempts at a peaceful resolution had been unsuccessful. The polite notes were ignored. The direct conversations were met with condescending smiles and empty promises. It was clear that Karen wasn't going to change. So, naturally, I turned to the HOA. I'd hoped, perhaps naively, that they would intervene, enforce the rules, and restore order to the parking lot. I sent an email detailing the situation, providing dates and times of Karen's parking transgressions, and even including a picture of her SUV occupying my spot. The response I received was underwhelming. Thank you for bringing this matter to our attention, the email read. We will look into it and address the issue with the resident in question. We appreciate your patience. Look into it, I'd muttered to myself. What's to look into? She's parked in my spot. Weeks went by. Nothing happened. Karen continued to park in my spot with impunity. I sent follow-up emails. I left voicemails. I even attended an HOA meeting, hoping to speak directly to the board. I was met with a wall of bureaucratic indifference. Mr. Peterson, the HOA representative, a bored-looking woman named Miss Davies, had said, her voice monotone and utterly devoid of empathy. "We understand your frustration, but these things take time. We have procedures. We have to follow protocol." "Protocol?" I'd repeated, incredulous. "What protocol? She's parked in my spot. It's not rocket science." "We've sent her a notice," Miss Davies had said, shuffling through a stack of papers, "and we'll follow up, if necessary." "If necessary?" I'd echoed, my voice rising in pitch. "It's necessary now!" Miss Davies had sighed, clearly annoyed by my insistence. "Mr. Peterson, we have many residents with concerns. We can't just drop everything to deal with a parking dispute." A parking dispute? It wasn't a dispute. It was a theft. I was starting to realize that the HOA was useless. They were either unwilling or unable to confront Karen. Perhaps because she was a wealthy, influential member of the community. Or maybe they just didn't care. Either way, I was on my own. My internal monologue had become a constant stream of frustrated rants. "It's my spot. I pay for it. It's in the contract. How hard is it to understand?" I'd even started fantasizing about towing her car, or letting the air out of her tires, or, well, let's just say my thoughts weren't always charitable. And then it happened. The final straw. I came home one evening, exhausted after a particularly grueling day at work, to find Karen's SUV, once again, parked in my spot. But this time there was something new. A note. Tucked under her windshield wiper, a bright pink sticky note with a message scrawled in perfect, looping handwriting. "Sorry, not sorry." That was it. I snapped. The polite notes, the HOA complaints, the attempts at reason, all useless. Karen wasn't going to stop. She was going to keep parking in my spot, flaunting her entitlement and laughing in my face. And I, James Peterson, was done being the nice guy. It was time for a new approach, a drastic approach. That pink, sticky note, that smug little winky face, that was it. The final insult, the straw that broke the camel's back. Or, in this case, the illegally parked SUV that broke the homeowner's patience. I, James Peterson, was officially done. Done with being polite, done with being reasonable, done with Karen and her blatant disregard for the rules and my parking spot. My blood wasn't just boiling, it was vaporizing. I needed a solution, a permanent solution, a way to reclaim my parking spot once and for all, and to teach Karen a lesson she wouldn't soon forget. I wasn't just going to get my spot back. I was going to protect it. I was going to fortify it. I was going to... Well, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, but it was going to be epic. I briefly considered towing. It seemed the simplest answer. The HOA bylaws. My usual source of frustration had become my hunting ground. I needed a weapon, a loophole, a way to fight back within the confines of their ridiculous rules. I scanned the document, searching for anything related to parking, to enforcement, to anything that might give me an edge. I checked towing first. Nope. While I'm sure I could have found a way, the HOA had rules against towing other residents. And then I saw it. It was in the section on parking regulations. There were rules about the use of parking spaces. No commercial vehicles, no boats, no trailers, no parking for longer than 72 hours without prior approval. But there was nothing, not a single word, about enclosing them. There was a vague rule about maintaining the visibility of parking spaces for safety and aesthetic purposes. But I figured I could work around that. I mean, a garage has doors, right? Doors can be opened, problem solved. Specifically, there wasn't a rule stating I couldn't build something there. The idea hit me like a lightning bolt. A garage, a private garage, built directly on my assigned parking spot. It was perfect. It was audacious. It was utterly ridiculous. And it was, as far as I could tell, perfectly legal within the confines of the HOA's Byzantine rulebook. Operation Fortress Parking was born. My plan was simple in theory, but gloriously over the top in execution. I wouldn't just build a garage, I'd build a monument to parking spot protection. It would be far larger than necessary, extending to the absolute limits of my assigned space. It would be constructed from high-quality materials, designed to withstand a hurricane. Or, a Karen. And it would have features. Oh, it would definitely have features. I envisioned a garage with automatic doors, of course, and interior lighting. And maybe a small workshop area, because why not? And perhaps even a car lift? I mean, if I was going to build a garage, I might as well go all out, right? It would be the ultimate parking space, a fortress of solitude for my car, a testament to my unwavering determination to never, ever have to circle the block looking for parking again. I could already picture Karen's reaction. The sputtering outrage, the vein throbbing in her forehead, the inevitable meltdown. It was a beautiful image. I was embracing the ridiculousness of the situation, reveling in the prospect of revenge, and fueled by a potent mixture of righteous indignation and caffeine. This was going to be fun. Before I contacted a builder, I did have to make it legal. I went to the city's office and spoke to a tired woman. "I'd like to apply for a permit to build a garage," I say, as calmly as possible. "All right, what are the dimensions?" she asked, clearly ready for her lunch break. I hand her the sketch and watch her eyes slowly widen, so it's going in a parking spot. "Yes, my assigned parking spot," I nod. "Sir, I'm going to be honest, I have no idea if this is allowed. You're going to have to wait here." She gets up and goes into an office and closes the door. A few minutes later, a man walks out, looking over my sketch, and starts laughing. He shakes my hand. "You, sir, are a genius. It's completely legal." I leave, permit in hand. My first call was to a local contractor, a guy named Bob. Apparently, Bobs are just drawn to my HOA-defying projects. "Bob," I said, "I need a garage." "Okay," Bob said, sounding unfazed. "What kind of garage?" "A special garage," I said. "A very unique garage, built on a parking spot." There was a pause. "A parking spot?" "Yes," I said. "My assigned parking spot, in a condo complex. I want it to be big and elaborate, and Karen-proof." I explained the whole saga. The stolen parking spot, the useless HOA, the smug note, and my burning desire to create the most epic parking space protection system ever devised. Bob started to laugh. "You're serious? You're going to build a garage on a parking spot just to get back at your neighbor?" "Absolutely," I said. "And I want it to be extra. Think, maximum security meets maximum inconvenience. For her, not for me, obviously." "I love it," Bob said, chuckling. "This is going to be the most interesting project I've worked on all year. Tell me your vision." And so, construction commenced. The first step was, ironically, the most satisfying, marking the boundaries of my parking spot with bright orange spray paint, creating a clear, undeniable outline of my future garage. It was like reclaiming my territory, staking my claim, declaring to the world, or at least to Karen, "This is mine." Then came the concrete foundation, the framing, the walls, the roof. It was a surprisingly quick process, considering the scale of the project. I'd opted for high-quality materials, sturdy wood framing, insulated walls, a heavy-duty garage door, with a remote control, of course, and even some decorative stonework on the exterior, just to add a touch of class, and to clash spectacularly with the bland architecture of the condo complex. I also added some extra features: a small workshop area complete with a workbench and tool storage, a car lift, because why not? And my personal favorite, a state-of-the-art security system with motion-activated lights, cameras, and a surprisingly loud alarm. The neighbors, as expected, were fascinated. They'd gather on the sidewalks, watching the construction with a mixture of shock, amusement, and disbelief. "What is he building?" I heard one whisper. "It looks like a garage," another said. "But on a parking spot?" "I heard he's doing it to get back at Karen," a third said with a knowing chuckle. Even the construction crew seemed to be enjoying the project. They'd work diligently, but I'd often catch them exchanging amused glances and shaking their heads, clearly entertained by the absurdity of it all. My internal monologue was a constant stream of triumphant pronouncements. "Take that, Karen," I'd mutter to myself as the walls went up. "Enjoy your street parking now," I'd exclaim as the garage door was installed. I was reveling in my victory, even before it was complete. Of course, there was a brief visit from an HOA representative. Not Karen, thankfully. She was probably still recovering from the shock of seeing construction crews in her parking lot. "Mr. Peterson?" he said, looking nervously at the rapidly growing structure. "We've received some concerns about this project." "Concerns?" I repeated, feigning innocence. "What kind of concerns?" "Well," he said, stammering slightly, "it's rather unusual. A garage on a parking spot." "It's a parking space enhancement," I corrected, with a perfectly straight face. "And as you can see," I added, pulling out a copy of my building permit and the relevant HOA bylaws, both of which I now carried with me at all times, "it's perfectly compliant. All permits approved, all regulations followed." He looked at the documents, then at the garage, then back at me. He clearly had no idea what to do. He mumbled something about reviewing the situation, and retreated, looking utterly defeated. And as the garage neared completion, I noticed a shift in the neighborhood. People who had previously avoided eye contact with me were now smiling and waving. Some even stopped to chat, expressing their admiration for my bold move and sharing their own HOA horror stories. It seemed I'd inadvertently become a symbol of resistance, a champion of the common homeowner against the tyranny of petty rules and power-hungry neighbors. And to my surprise, several of them even asked for Bob's contact information. Apparently, I wasn't the only one in Sunset Condominiums who had a creative solution to an HOA problem. The completion of my garage, my magnum opus of parking spot protection, was a moment I'll never forget. It stood there, in all its oversized, over-engineered glory, a monument to my defiance, a testament to my ingenuity, and a giant middle finger to Karen and her entitled parking habits. It was beautiful. And of course, Karen arrived within minutes of the construction crew packing up their tools. She didn't even bother to park, probably couldn't find a spot, thanks to me. She just stormed up my driveway, her face a mask of fury, her perfectly manicured hands clenched into fists. "What?" she shrieked, her voice echoing through the now garage-filled parking lot. "Have you done?" I emerged from the garage, a picture of calm satisfaction, holding the remote control for the garage door. "Good afternoon, Karen," I said, my voice smooth and even. "You're referring, I presume, to my new garage?" "Garage!" she sputtered, pointing a trembling finger at the structure. This is outrageous! It's a garage on a parking spot!" "It's a parking space enhancement, Karen," I corrected with a perfectly straight face. "And, as you can see, it's perfectly compliant with the HOA bylaws. Section on parking regulations, remember? No rules against enclosures." But it's a garage," she repeated, as if I hadn't heard her the first time. It's huge, it's ugly." "It's functional," I countered, "and my car is very happy, safe, secure, protected from the elements, and, of course, from unauthorized parking. I gave her a pointed look. You did this on purpose," she accused, her voice shaking with rage. "You built this monstrosity just to spite me." "I built it to protect my assigned parking space, Karen," I said with a shrug, "which, I remind you, is mine. And for your information, it has some wonderful features." I gestured towards the garage door. "Automatic opener, see?" I pressed a button on the remote, and the door smoothly, silently glided open. Interior lighting, and, I added, stepping inside, a workshop area, and a car lift. Because, why not? Karen stared at the garage, her mouth agape, her eyes wide with disbelief. She looked like she was about to spontaneously combust. I'll have this thing removed," she stammered. "I'll sue you, You'll do nothing, Karen," I said, my voice firm, "because I've followed the rules, your rules, and now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go. Admire my garage." I pressed the button on the remote again, and the garage door smoothly, silently closed, leaving Karen standing alone in the parking lot, sputtering in impotent rage. The emergency HOA meeting, a regular occurrence at this point, it seemed, was, predictably, a disaster. For Karen, that is. She arrived, armed with photographs of my garage, taken from various unflattering angles, a petition signed by her and 2 other board members, and a whole lot of righteous indignation. This garage," she declared, her voice shaking with emotion, "is an affront to everything Sunset Condominium stands for. It's an eyesore. It's a parking space hog. It's a violation of the spirit of the rules." "The spirit?" I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "I thought we were dealing with the letter of the law, Karen. Or, in this case, the bylaws." I then presented my defense, calmly and methodically. I cited the relevant sections of the bylaws again. I presented my building permits, all properly obtained and displayed. I argued that I was simply protecting my assigned parking space, a right clearly outlined in the HOA documents. And, just for good measure, I'd brought along a parking space security expert, a friend of mine who worked as a mechanic and had a surprisingly extensive knowledge of parking lot regulations. Enclosed parking, my expert testified, provides numerous benefits. It protects vehicles from the elements, reduces the risk of theft and vandalism, and enhances the overall security of the community. He even managed to say it with a straight face. The other board members were, to put it mildly, divided. Some were clearly still loyal to Karen, nodding along to her every rant. Others looked confused, overwhelmed by the sheer absurdity of the situation. And a few, I suspected, were secretly admiring my audacity, and perhaps even considering building their own parking garages. Then, a woman from the back of the room stood up. She was an architect, a resident of Sunset Condominiums I'd spoken to briefly during the construction. "I have to say," she said, her voice calm and professional, "while Mr. Peterson's solution is certainly unconventional, it's also quite ingenious. The garage is well built, structurally sound, and, dare I say it, aesthetically interesting. It's certainly a conversation starter." That was the final blow. The board, facing a potential lawsuit, a public relations nightmare, and the growing realization that Karen had completely lost it, voted to take no action. The meeting ended in chaos, with Karen screaming about injustice and parking lot anarchy, and me, James Peterson, the garage-building rebel, emerging victorious. But Karen, like a persistent weed in a perfectly manicured lawn, wasn't about to give up. What followed was a period of escalating absurdity that I can only describe as the garage war. Karen, obsessed with getting rid of my garage, or at the very least reclaiming her parking spot, tried every tactic she could think of. She filed complaints with the city, claiming the garage was a zoning violation, a safety hazard, and an eyesore. The city inspectors came, they inspected, and they found nothing. The garage was perfectly legal. She tried to park in front of my garage, blocking my access. I responded by strategically placing a row of large, heavy planters along the curb, effectively creating a no parking zone. She even, I suspect, attempted some minor acts of vandalism. I found a few scratches on the garage door, easily buffed out, and a suspicious-looking stain that looked suspiciously like red paint. Karen's car was red, of course. Of course, I had security cameras everywhere, capturing her every move. And I, of course, responded in kind. Not with vandalism, oh no, I was above that. I responded with enhancements. I installed a security system for the garage, motion-activated lights that would flood the area with blinding illumination whenever anyone, usually Karen, approached, and a loud alarm that would shriek like a banshee if anyone, usually Karen, got too close. I added a car wash feature, a hose mounted on the side of the garage, and a bucket of soapy water conveniently placed near the entrance. Just in case my car needed a quick wash, of course. And because I couldn't resist, I put up a sign on the garage door. Reserved for James. Violators will be garaged. I even hosted a garage warming party, inviting all the neighbors, except Karen, naturally. We had food, drinks, and music, played at a reasonable volume, of course. And as a special treat, I gave everyone a tour of my garage, showcasing its many features and highlighting its HOA-compliant design. The local news even showed up, filming a segment about the Great Garage Standoff and the homeowner who built a fortress to protect his parking spot. It was a glorious, ridiculous, utterly over-the-top spectacle. And with each passing day, with each new escalation, I could feel Karen's frustration growing, her power waning, her sanity slipping. The garage had become more than just a parking space. It was a symbol of defiance, a testament to the power of creative and slightly unhinged resistance. And I, James Peterson, the accidental parking lot revolutionary, was winning.